Have you ever really stopped to think about what happens after you leave the doctor's office? There's this whole hidden language at work, a system of codes that translates everything that just happened to you into a financial transaction. Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain and decode that language. You know the drill. You go to the ER, and a few weeks later, a bill shows up covered in these cryptic numbers and weird codes. How does a real-life medical situation get translated into this piece of paper? That's exactly the mystery we're going to solve today. And to make this super clear, we're going to follow the journey of a patient. We'll just call them Alex, who has a bit of a bad day and ends up in the ER with a broken arm. Alex's story is basically the perfect roadmap for understanding how this whole system works from start to finish. Okay, so at the heart of all of this, you've basically got two main characters, ICD codes and CPT codes. Now, the easiest way to think about them is this. ICD codes explain why you're at the doctor, and CPT codes explain what the doctor did about it. The why and the what. Remember that, because it is the key to absolutely everything. So, every single medical story, no matter how simple or complex, gets split into these two distinct categories. First, you've got the reason for the visit, and second, you've got the services that were provided. So let's break down exactly what that means for Alex. First up, we've got the why. This is where ICD codes come into play. ICD, that stands for International Classification of Diseases. And its one and only job is to answer the question, what's the problem here? It's the official diagnosis. So for our patient, Alex, it's pretty simple, right? The ICD code basically tells the insurance company, hey, the reason Alex is here? Broken arm. That's it. It's the diagnostic part of the story. But that's only half of it. Okay, so that's the diagnosis, but now we get to the what, and this is handled by CPT codes, which stands for Current Procedural Terminology. These codes are all about action. They answer the question, so what was the treatment, or what services were actually performed? So what did the medical team actually do for Alex? Well, think about it. They provided emergency department services, right? That gets a CPT code. They took an X-ray of the forearm. Yep, that's another CPT code. And of course, they performed the procedure to set the broken bone. That gets its own specific code too. Every single action has a number. So we have the why and we have the what. But how in the world do you get from a doctor's hurried scribbled notes to these very specific billing codes? Well, that's where the real translation process begins. I mean, these codes don't just appear out of thin air, right? They have to be pulled from the detailed story of the patient's visit. So where does a medical coder even begin to find the right information? It all starts with the clinical documentation. You can think of these documents as the raw source material, the case file. Coders are basically detectives. They pore over things like SOAP notes, the history and physical report, and operative summaries, hunting for those key details that match up with specific ICD and CPT codes. And this whole thing is a real team effort, kind of like a handoff in a relay race. The provider examines Alex and documents everything. Then the coder, our detective, reviews those notes and suggests the right codes. Often, they'll even review them together to make absolutely sure everything is accurate before the biller locks it in and sends the invoice off to the insurance company. All right, now for the part everyone's really interested in, how all these codes finally turn into cash. Because at the end of the day, this entire process is the financial engine that keeps the hospital running. So after all that careful work, where do these numbers actually go? Well, they all land right here on a standardized form called the CMS 1500. This is pretty much the universal claim form used across the entire industry. It's where the story of Alex's broken arm gets formally told to the insurance company in the language of codes. And check this out. If you look closely at the form, you can see our two main characters have their own dedicated spaces. Box 21 over here, that's for the diagnosis codes. The ICD codes are Y. And then you've got box 24D, which is for all the procedures. The CPT codes are what? The form is literally designed to tell the complete story. This is what was wrong, and this is what we did about it. When you really boil it all down, it comes back to this one crucial idea. Medical coding is, at its heart, the translation of clinical terms to financial terms. It's the bridge that connects what happens in the exam room to the billing department. And getting that translation right is absolutely non-negotiable. If the why and the what don't logically connect, the diagnosis is a broken arm, but the procedure code is for heart surgery, the claim gets rejected instantly. And that rejection causes this huge cascade of problems: payment delays, tons of paperwork to fix the error, and a lot of confusion.
But when the codes are correct, when the story they tell is logical, and it's all supported by the doctor's notes, bingo, the claim gets processed and the hospital gets paid. Clean and simple.
And that is why this hidden language is so incredibly important. Getting the codes right isn't just administrative busywork. It creates a standardized, predictable payment process. It avoids all those costly rejections and delays, and it makes sure the hospital's revenue cycle, the flow of money that pays for everything, keeps running smoothly. So it turns out the language of medicine isn't just about healing, It's also a language of finance, spoken entirely in codes. It kind of makes you wonder, right? What other hidden languages are out there, quietly running the world all around us?